Welcome to The Horrible Idea, a podcast about horror movies. I'm Stephanie, a verified scaredy cat, here with the unflappable flapjack, Jack. And why can't you be normal?
Ah!
This week we are talking about 2014's The Babadook, directed by Jennifer Kent, screenplay by Jennifer Kent, based on a story, Monster, by Same, which she has called Baby Babadook.
Yeah, the budget was $2 million. I think that might be Australian money. I'm not sure what they use there. The box office was $10.3 million, which seems super small. The IMDb rating was 6.9. Rotten Tomatoes, a very ripe 98%. The audience, 72%, still pretty good. I mean, I think this is considered one of those artsy foreign films.
Yeah, I mean, 72% is still, I think that's still in the fresh quadrant, so. But yes, one of the highest Rotten Tomatoes scores that I've seen. So pretty consensus, critics' favorable score. So going into this, I had heard of the Babadook. I knew of his status as a gay icon. I knew that this movie was about grief, depression, stress, the harrowing tale of raising a child. And I knew it was directed by a woman from Australia. So I guess I knew quite a bit about it. But yeah. What were your preconceptions for this?
I knew, like, the meme. I knew the Babadook primarily as a gay icon. And I had seen the sort of screaming in the car that we so beautifully parodied in the opener.
It was an expert parody, yes.
So, a quick question when it comes to the preconceptions. Has this movie influenced your child rearing plans?
Not at all, because I have basically, since I think I was 12 years old, known I don't want to have children. So, I mean, I guess it reinforced the already very strong foundation that I will not be rearing children. What about you?
This could be like a public service announcement for safer sex.
Yeah, it's yeah, like I said, it's quite harrowing. So for you, as a person that appreciates design, how did you feel about the design of the titular book, or the book based on the titular hero, Mr. Babadook?
I liked it. It was very interesting. The book itself was cool and sort of had this almost charcoal-like look to him. And then the way they mimicked the sort of pop-up cutout silhouette of him in the reality of the film, and then how that sort of got blurred, and sometimes he looked much more realistic, sometimes he looked like a drawing, sometimes he looked like he was made out of like charcoal or shadow. And yeah, it was one of the best parts of the movie for me.
Yeah, I thought it was really expert level pop-up design from whoever made this scary book, especially the second version that we get of it.
Yeah, there's a sort of interesting part childlike sort of crayon drawing and part sort of serial killer writing.
Yeah, like the journals of John Doe from Seven or something like that. So maybe we should get into the meme of it all.
Okay.
So the legend has it that the Babadook was included in error, by accident, on Netflix under LGBTQ films.
Right.
Now, I don't know if this is actually true. There was a screenshot on Tumblr but, the world just sort of ran with it. And the Babadook has now been fully inducted into the Queer Icon Hall of Fame.
Right.
And I think this happened around 2017, was
That
it
sounds
not?
right. I saw it on Tumblr back when Tumblr was a thing. And there was another post I remember seeing about, like, sort of the queer coding of monsters and sort of like, it was a post, I think, calling out a Catholic or some religious thing that's saying, like, gay people are monsters, and then the gay response being like, yes, we are. Okay, vampires are my boyfriend, and werewolves are my uncle, and the Babadook is my, cool dad.
Yeah, and Ursula is my godmother. And yeah. I mean, I think most of the, like, I think this has said a lot of, like, the Disney characters, like Ursula, Jafar. But honestly, those were my favorite characters. So,
Sure.
I'm fine with it. But I also do feel like, on the face of it, I don't think the average straight person would look at the Babadook and think he's gay. But that's why I appreciate it, because it was fully embraced from within the queer community. And I mean, and watching the movie, I get it. He stuttles around very fast all the time, as
Sure.
if he's hopped up on iced coffee. He's clicking his long talons about.
And sort of like spreading out his fingers like he's waiting for them to dry or something, or doing jazz
Yes.
hands, perhaps.
Yeah, and he just sort of, like, I don't know. I think he's also very chaotic.
Yeah, is it
Which
chaotic
I
gay
appreciate
energy?
his chaotic energy. Yeah. So I'm into it. I think one of my favorite memes was of there's a photo of the Babadook photoshopped in with the village people. And
Nice.
so now my headcanon is that the Babadook is a member of the village people.
So, is the Babadook your favorite character?
Yes, I would say he's the obvious favorite, because he's just got great energy. He really drives the plot forward. But my, subtle stealth favorite is the magician from Sam's videotapes.
Oh yeah, I like that.
He's really amazing.
There's a thing that sort of rural Australia and some British stuff too is like sort of American culture minus 20 years, and that was very much like this weird Australian magic tape is something that I can imagine having in the 80s. And it came with a little box set with a flower that squirts water and a collapsing wand.
Oh yeah. I loved magic tricks, or, like, I liked pranks like that as well. Like when, like, the cup that has the hole in it, so when you drink water it spills on you.
Yeah, I dabbled with it, but as you know now, I dislike magicians greatly.
Oh.
It's a well-known fact about me.
I don't know if I knew that, but it tracks. So what about you? Who's your favorite character?
I like the Duke. I'm down with the Duke. He had style and he had a certain je ne sais quoi. But I also like Robbie, the guy who worked with her, who brought the flowers and the model airplane. It was, he was both wholesome and trying to get into her pants. And I mean, if there was ever a character who needed to get laid, Amelia is her.
Poor Amelia. I mean, I can simultaneously understand how she may not have much of a sex drive, considering her situation, but also the contrast of how badly she needs to just.
Well, she just needs some release. She needs to like go skiing or like jump out of a plane, something.
So here's the script from the magician that Sam repeats that I love. Life is not always as it seems. It can be a wondrous thing, but it can also be very treacherous. And I just love this like 6-year-old kid just like doing magic tricks and saying this little script. I don't know, it was funny.
Yeah, and I think he was great. I mean, the kid was just like an amazing performer, and I especially liked when he was repeating that whole little monologue.
That was when he
with
was his
such
most
passion.
Yeah, that was when he was his most charming. Even though like his magic
Sure.
tricks sometimes like caused chaos. It was, a 6-year-old kid being earnest and trying to, show his mom something cool.
Yeah, which was important because, man, this kid was annoying. And I can't think of any kid who was more sort of frustratingly just annoying, including like Dennis the Menace. He was just, wow. And it was good to have that sort of reminder that this is a human kid who is, not a screaming machine.
Yeah. Well, I changed my feeling about Sam like every 3 minutes because, on a more serious note, I lost a parent at a very young age before I was really old enough to know them. So in a way, I sympathize with Sam. But he had such a shrill voice and he was constantly like screaming or yelling or saying, "Mom, look at this." So I'd just be like, God, this kid needs to like be like thrown in the basement, which sort of happens later. But, and then I'd be like, well, he's gone through a lot. And like the kid, his cousin makes fun of him for not having a dad. And like, I don't know. You definitely sympathize more with him in like the third act. He becomes far more sympathetic.
Sure. And as an annoying boy, which I was, who constantly I was just reminded of this. My thing when I was a kid was I would say, hey, have you ever seen this movie? And whether you said yes or no, I would then tell you the entire plot of this movie.
Are you sure that's just when you were a kid?
It's a great segue to our plot summary.
Yeah, so peek behind the curtain. I think we're going to try to, for the newer movies, be a little less spoilery. We'll at least announce sort of when there will be a spoiler coming in. So, quick overview. Amelia is a single mom. Her husband died while they were on the way to the hospital to give birth to her son, Sam, who, when the movie starts, is 6 years old. He's having a lot of behavioral issues. Neither of them gets much sleep. It's a bad situation overall. So one night Amelia, the mom, is saying, "Oh, okay, let's read our bedtime story." He picks out a book from the shelf that Amelia had not seen before. And this book is called Mr. Babadook. So they're flipping through the pages. It's very eerie. It's got a lot of pop-ups. Mr. Babadook is a ominous figure in a top hat and a long coat. Sam believes in this, and strange things start happening. He gets in trouble at school for bringing one of his homemade weapons, which maybe we can pause and talk about the homemade weapons, because I thought they were really advanced for this kid. Like, he's got a little inventor in him.
They were, and he uses them well at one point. Kind of reminded me of one of my favorite movies of all time, The Lost Boys, which they have a lot of little contraptions and things.
Or like Home Alone.
Sure, there was a lot of Home Alone in this movie, weirdly, or even The Goonies. But there's a long tradition of kids making crazy things.
Yeah. So he gets in trouble at school, but he's kind of consistently like, the Babadook is real. He's doing stuff. He's in the house. So Amelia tears up the book, throws it away, and they're just kind of continuing to be sort of ostracized from family and friends. He's not able to go to school at the moment, and so they're getting really isolated.
Yeah, so after she rips it up, it arrives back again on their doorstep and has like a few even scarier passages. And so she burns it dramatically and then goes to the police, which is a reasonable thing, where they kind of just laugh at her, and she sort of just makes a scene. And when she comes back, she's like, her frustration is sort of doubled. She kind of just flips out on her son and cuts the phone lines and starts hallucinating that she's murdering him.
Yeah, that was very disturbing.
It was, yeah.
Okay, at this point, I think we're going to talk about some spoilers. So if you haven't seen the movie, fast forward a few minutes, and we'll be out of there.
Or pause this, and go watch the movie, and then come back at this exact point.
Yes.
So at this point, Amelia sees the sort of ghost of her husband, Oscar, and he tells her to bring him the boy.
Which is an interesting callback, because when she's at his school and the teachers and administrators are talking to her about why he's being sent home, they keep calling him the boy, and she gets upset about that, and she says, don't call him the boy, his name's Sam. So when I just thought it was interesting when this apparition calls him the boy, I think that's when she kind of clues in and is like, you're not really Oscar, like you're the Babadook or whatever.
Right. So the main sort of dispute that Stephanie and I have in this movie is that when she's in the basement and the Babadook is sort of like trying to get to possess her, he sort of jumps in through the back end, and I'm thinking it's anal, and Stephanie is adamant that it is a vaginal possession.
Well, because the movie is so much about her being a mom, and I don't know. It seemed like a vaginal possession to me.
I want Ed and Lorraine to put this on the chalkboard about describing when it is going in which hole.
Yeah, which stage of possession.
So this was something that we sort of saw coming from the beginning, and we even looked it up. Stephanie and I watched this movie together with my roommates, my unnamed roommates. And so the minute we saw the dog, we looked up if the dog dies, and yes, it does. And it's a very gruesome scene that we actually fast forwarded because it was long.
Yeah. Me and your roommate were basically both adamant that no, we don't want to watch this. I'm fine with that. I got the gist of what was happening.
Right. But this whole time she's truly possessed. And then she sort of shakes herself out of it after Sam lures her to the basement and knocks her out. She wakes up, she tries to choke him, and then she's like, no, I can't do this. And then she pukes up black liquid that I guess is the Babadook inside of her.
Yeah, that was one of the moments when I was like, Sam is a sweet kid, because she's literally choking him out, and he's petting her face and is and one of the cutest things that he does in the whole movie is when he's really concerned about the Babadook, he's like, I'll protect you if you promise to protect me. And then later on in that scene, when she's possessed and he's tied her down and he's trying to help her, he says that again. And I almost got a little choked up because I was like, that's so sweet. She's a murderous, psychopath in this moment. And he's still you're my mom, I want to save you. It was very cute.
Yeah. I've noticed in watching these, I'm often comparing the one we did just previous. And this does have a lot of Conjuring sort of similarities. It's possessed mom trying to kill her child. It takes, there's a big part in the basement. The basement is very integral to the plot, and it's a sort of older house. There's there's just lots of things, and just some of the particulars of the possession. I think the mother in The Conjuring throws up at one point too, and sort of that's the representation of her getting it out of her system. So there's a confrontation where Amelia screams at the Babadook and sort of just summons up all of her strength and actually scares it and sort of sends it away, and it goes down to the basement. And then sort of we get a little fast forward, and she's talking to those, at one point there's like a protective services people who come by and see this mess that the house is. And she talks to them, and now she's like, petting Sam on the head, and she's like, everything's cool. We found a new school. And then in a very sort of poltergeisty, after moment, they're picking worms in the garden, and then she takes this bowl of worms down to the basement, and there's the Babadook like hiding in the shadows, and she gives him the worms.
She kind of has to face him down again, but it seems like she's gotten better at it.
And it's gotten a little more sort of timid.
Yeah. I really liked the confrontation upstairs. When she kind of does a Gandalf and is like, get out of my house, like, you shall not pass. And
which Stephanie said during that scene.
I did.
Yes. She Gandalfed.
What was your running joke through this one?
Oh, maybe the real horror was.
Well, there's
blank.
that was your runner, but then there was also you were determined to fit in Baba puked at some point.
Oh yeah, and then she did, and I was like, score, she Baba puked.
Yes,
we did a lot of Baba something, Baba.
Yeah, I think I used the term Baba discourse like 5 times. So yeah, I really liked the ending. So I think I kind of saw this. So, full reveal, I had looked up some of the plot points of this a couple years ago when I had no intention of watching it. So, I had forgotten most of it, but I knew that at the end, the Babadook lives in the basement and that they kind of have figured out how to live with it. But I thought it was an interesting little coda. Especially when you consider like the themes of the movie.
Yeah, and I liked the little detail of like if you saw on the top of the door to the basement, there were all these locks that she had installed, and he was kind of Harry Pottered in there under the stairs. So I was sitting next to you, so I was there for the jump scares.
Oh,
but do you want to go over some of your biggest?
I had quite a few. At one point, so they lived next to this older woman, Mrs. Roach, I believe was her name. And
yes, who I was sure was going to die.
Yeah, I was not so convinced, and I'm glad I was right, because she was a sweet old lady. But so at one point Amelia looks through her window and she sees the Babadook kind of like hovering in the shadows of her neighbor's house, which was super creepy and scared me. There's a part where the Babadook kind of appears when they're driving home from a birthday party. That really freaked me out. Basically, anytime we see the Babadook, I jumped. Or like had to kind of cover my eyes a little bit, and as we said, we skipped the part with the dog because I don't need to see that.
Right. Full disclosure, I've been talking to my therapist about my vulnerability issues, and so in watching this movie specifically and the last one, I really tried to sort of let myself be a little more scared and let my guard down. And it was scary, but it was like also very enjoyable movie. I like this movie. I like the style of it. And that sort of, it was much more frustrating than frightening to me. And I really got like, I was tense. Like his screaming was just making my whole body sort of like tighten up.
Yeah.
And the parts where he was like coming out of the dresser and things like that, I've also noticed, like, I think every single movie except for maybe the slashers had some dresser or closet or like, and almost all of them had basements. I guess basement is like one of the biggest horror tropes of all time.
Yes.
But almost all of them had a gigantic bureau or dresser or like Narnia type entrance.
Mm.
And that's like a very primal fear when you're a kid, you know, like leave the closet door open kind of thing.
I mean, I'll be real. It's a fear as an adult, too. Or maybe that's just, I don't know, being a woman. But if there was one day when I came back, I think I just went out to take the dog out for a walk, and I came back, and on my front door there's a little switch that you can flip so that if it's unlocked, you can turn the knob and open it. Usually I have that flipped the other way so that whether it's locked or unlocked, you can't turn the knob and open it. But I guess it had flipped at some point. So I came back from the walk and my door was unlocked. And I went around and I checked every cupboard, every closet. I checked in the, like, behind the shower curtain. You know, so that still remains as, like, you know, any kind of hiding spot is scary. So let's get into our "Why'd you do that?" segment.
Is anybody home? Why did you do that? I'll be right back.
I mean, I think this is maybe just where I am in my life or how I look at all things, but why didn't you go to therapy sooner? Like, why didn't you get some help involved? Talk to those child protective services people, you know, just talk to somebody.
Yeah. I mean, hey, as a person who's been in therapy since I was 4, so over 30 years, I am a big proponent of this. And I've basically said every person should go to therapy. Like, I think it's beneficial to everyone, but especially Amelia. Like, she's got some real, you know, she's experienced some really traumatic things. She's raising a child on her own, a child that has behavioral issues. And, you know, I think the big theme of the movie is that she hasn't processed the grief of losing her husband. So.
Yeah, and when you don't process feelings, they distill and thicken into a Babadook.
Congeal. Yeah.
What was your first? Why'd you do that?
So I think you can probably relate to this. I think as New Yorkers, don't pull back the fridge and tear open the wall when you think you have cockroaches. Like, call someone, or I don't know, don't give them an opening to get further into your house. That was gross. I was thoroughly grossed out by that. You know, I was just like, just leave the wall the way it is and call an exterminator.
Sure, because also remember, this is Australia, and all the insects can kill you.
Yeah, it was just it was unnecessary. But what's your number 2?
My number 2 is, hey man, just give Robbie from work a shag. You know, just go on a date. Call Mrs. Roach. Be like, can you watch The Brat for a little while? We're gonna go get a motel.
Yeah, I mean, he was cute, I thought.
He seemed like a giving guy.
Yeah, I mean, his jokes were a little not good, but, like, just tell him
I thought they were great, Stephanie.
Yeah, I didn't. But just tell him shh. Just tell him no words. Just take off your clothes and let's do this. I agree. And that kind of goes into my number 2, which is,
all right.
You don't lock your bedroom door when you pull out the vibrator to jerk it. Like, come on, Amelia. You have to have had this happen before, and you know that Sam, like, randomly comes into your bedroom. Like, lock the door, or go into the bathroom. If you don't have a lock on your bedroom door, go into the bathroom. I don't know. The coitus interruptus, or whatever the term is for interruption of masturbation, was upsetting as any of the jump scares.
It was, and, like, you know, to not be funny about it for a second, I think it's like a super realistic, like, in a way that movies don't usually get, in this, like, very private thing that, like, and that whole, you know, sort of like masturbation when you have a kid is like it's a very tricky topic that I think they handled really well and didn't get super weird about it. It was just like, another thing that she just can't do.
Yeah.
And my last one is, all right, so you want to get rid of the book ASAP. That makes sense to me. It's creepy as hell. Maybe when it comes back the second time, you're like, okay, this is supernatural. I need to I'm going to destroy this, but maybe keep a page of it or take a picture of it, or, so when you go to the cops, you're not just talking out your ass. Something.
Yeah. No, that was tough because she burns it. Because the first time she tore it up, it came back, so she burns it in the grill. And, but then, yeah, she's got no proof to show the cops.
She throws that book on the Barbie.
Oh, boy. So I know we had discussed at the end of the movie, because I hid my eyes a lot, that I hadn't actually seen the Babadook, his, true face. And you were going to show me, and I said, save it for the pod. So maybe you want to pull that photo up and... Is that him?
Yeah, that's the one I was talking about.
I don't like it. Why is his mouth so big? Well, I mean, he has pretty eyes, though. I think if his mouth was a little smaller, he'd be handsome. He kind of reminds me of the mouth of Sauron in the extended edition of Return of the King. Wow. Nerd alert. Now I'm going to do a new segment. So one of my superpowers is I'm sort of a serviceable IMDb. So this is my 6 degrees of cinema segment. So basically I'm going to try to come full circle on whatever movie we're doing by touching as many weird movies as I can. So Jennifer Kent followed up The Babadook with The Nightingale, starring Aisling Franciosi, who starred in The Fall, a BBC detective series, as Paul Spector's babysitter Katie. Paul is played by Jamie Dornan, who dated Keira Knightley in the aughts. They had some really iconic outfits. And Keira starred in The Duchess with Charlotte Rampling, who starred in Zardoz with Sean Connery, who was James Bond, a series that featured Sean Bean, or Sean Bean, as 006, who also played Lord Eddard Stark on Game of Thrones, which also featured Essie Davis as Lady Crane, the lead actress in the Bravosi theater troupe, who acted out the plot of Game of Thrones, and of course Essie Davis is Amelia. So I got all the way there, and I included Zardoz, one of the weirdest movies of all time.
It's like an Ouroboros eating its own tail. That's very interesting. You did a good nerd job. I wanna do my own segment then. It's called Jack Spitballin', and it's like we're in a writer's room and we're just thinking what we can do with this nice property we have of the Babadook. And so
where does the IP go from here?
Exactly. The Babadook cinematic universe. And the first thing came to mind was, you got this family who has a little secret in the basement, and maybe it's a sitcom. Maybe it's like I Dream of Jeannie or Bewitched or Alf. Maybe Samuel shows the Duke over to his friends to try to be cool, or the Babadook ruins a date that Amelia's on, or maybe they all rewrite the book together, and it gets on Oprah's book club.
Nice.
Or maybe
so in this universe, do they have to keep the Babadook secret?
Well, I think it'd be like, yes, to a degree, but there would be, lots of funny things, and maybe like one or two neighbors know about him, in the vein of a Small Wonder or Harry and the Hendersons.
Right.
Or maybe it could be something like, Babadook's the boss, or maybe Babadook is not like one of the stars, but maybe he's just like a wacky neighbor, like Kramer only the embodiment of grief anthropomorphized as a nightmare creature, which, is pretty much...
Can he be gay on the show?
Sure.
And he just, like, pops in to do, like, musical numbers?
Or maybe it'll be like Ellen, where he'll come out, like, the third season.
Oh, I was going to say where he's abusive to his staff. Yes, that would be amazing. I think the one that I would greenlight is Babadook as Kramer.
Yeah.
Where he just kind of pops in on the and kind of causes hijinks and then scuttles away with his long talons.
All right, final reactions.
All right, so my final reaction, I liked the set design a lot. While we were watching, I kind of kept saying, like, oh, it reminds me of Tim Burton. And I think what I meant by that is the set design was very storybook-like. Like, the colors, it was like blue, gray, white, and black. And I read that actually they color corrected some of it to look even more in that color family. And there were just kind of like big door frames and the way the stairways looked and the lighting and, which obviously fit really well into the whole atmosphere of the book, Mr. Babadook, and it being kind of like a children's tale and everything. This is Jennifer Kent's debut feature. I thought it was really, really confident and, well-made film. It was also, I believe, only about an hour and a half, which, as you know, I love in a movie. So I give it, and it was scary. I was genuinely scared. It touched on a lot of things that are, personal for me, grief, loss. But it did it in a way that was entertaining and it was really tightly edited as well. I didn't think there was any moment where it lagged. So for me, it gets scare factor 7 out of 10 and entertainment factor 8 out of 10. I liked this one. What about you?
Yeah, I liked it too. I thought it sort of straddled that line between the sort of archness or the cartooniness of Burton, where it still looked like this world mostly, but just sort of little edge of it. But I enjoyed it, and I think in anxiety is like right next to sort of being scared, and it really built this anxiety of just this kid screaming and the look on the mother's face when she looked like she was like aging 10 years as she just like kept getting worn down until at the end she was basically like, yeah, just possess me, whatever. Like, kind of just something. So yeah, it was great. And I love the ending, that it was sort of, not a full twist, but it was this sort of funny and wholesome sort of ending. And that it's not like good versus evil. It's sort of like this acceptance and processing and sort of like, even, at the end, you felt this sympathy that the mother had for the monster, because it was just sort of like this chaotic emotion beast that she sort of like, it seemed like or their situation created it. And so she had this sort of caringness towards it, which I thought was really a great way to end it. So I gave it a 5 out of 10 scare factor, maybe, 5.5, 6. And then entertainment, I had the same, 8 out of 10. I want to look up the next movie she did.
I've heard it is quite a harrowing film. Very good. It was very well reviewed, but I guess more than one scene of sexual assault. So, but also I think, it's a revenge tale, so hopefully she gets some payback. But anyway, so next week we're checking out the brand new Netflix horror comedy Vampires vs. the Bronx, and this is directed by Osmani Rodriguez, who I think goes by Oz. But this just came out, I think, last week. So excited to watch that.
On social media, I've already seen some friends of mine give it some positive reviews. And I'm glad we're seeing like new things that neither of us really have any real opinions about yet. It makes for a interesting conversation.
Yeah, for sure. So follow us on Instagram. We're at The Horrible Idea. On Twitter, at HorriblePod. We're on YouTube, where I sometimes post some of my fright reactions. And also, please give us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts. That helps get the word out. But we're also on Stitcher, Spotify, whatever you're listening on. Don't be scared.
If you have any interesting facts about the Babadook or Vampires vs. the Bronx, or if you have a suggestion for a movie that you think might scare us, let us know on Twitter or email us at thehorribleidea@gmail.com.
All right. See you guys next week.
Babadook Dook.